Good morning, friends. I welcome you all once again for this discussion on this assembler and system software that we have started. So, I'm Mahesh Sangvi, working as Professor and Head Department of Computer Engineering, SNJB's Leadso, KP College of Engineering, Chandpur. Today we will focus more on system softwares, and one of them is assembler, and there are some more system softwares that we have to study today. So if you observe, the agenda of this today's session will be, as usual, I'll take what the review of last session. Then we'll have a discussion on assembler. Then we'll look at the macroprocessor, what exactly it is. Then we'll cover what exactly is compiler, and we'll see the debugger. At the end, we'll start with assembly language, which is already known to many of you, and we'll end up with this particular discussion at assembly language. So let's start with this, like preview of last session. If you remember, we started with what system software, and in system software, we have seen there are certain important features. Okay, and there are various system softwares that we have studied. That is, one of them is text editor. Then we have seen loader, and we also seen the functions of loader. So there are four major functions of loader. If you recall, it was what allocation. We can able to allocate the memory. We should able to link the contents of what some standard library or some other programs if we are giving that particular references. Then relocation, this will be needed in case if the addresses are getting changed, we need to relocate the addresses to each and every instructions in that case. And finally, there will be a loading. This loading will help us to load the program into main memory, that is what the RAM. So there are four functions of loader: allocation, linking, relocation, and loading. So pretty simple, and many times it is asked in examinations of SPPU. Let's focus on today's discussion, that is assembler. So assembler, what is that, my dear friends? Assembler is one of the translator that translate your assembly language program into machine language. Always remember, when I'm talking about machine language, it can be object code or it can be binary or low level language. So machine language, low level language, binary, object code, all are same. Difference normally is here with what assembly language program. If assembly language program will be there, or if assembly language, if some code is written in assembly language, naturally we need what assembler to translate this assembly language program into machine language. So that is important to know about what assembler. We'll see in depth how this can be done with what the assembler, how we can able to perform in-depth analysis of this particular assembler. And I'm sure at the end of this particular unit you all will understand how we can able to develop or design assembler. So let's move towards the next system software, that is macro processor. My dear friends, you must understand that currently, as the topic was like this, introduction to various system softwares. So what are the various system softwares? We have seen text editor, we have seen loader, and recently we have seen assembler. And now we are working with what? Macro processor. The macro processor, the name suggests you all have already used macro processor a couple of times. It's not micro, it is macro, right? MA, not MI. So microprocessor was somewhat different and macroprocessor is somewhat different. So here you need to understand what exactly is macro. Macro allow you to sequence of various source code languages to be defined once, and we can use it what multiple times. So that's the beauty of macro. So what macro is doing, आपको क्या करना रहेगा? You need to simply write down it once, okay, in source language, and multiple times you can use it. And the example for this can be, you might have used hash defined. Okay, you might have used what? Hash defined. So this hash defined max and tail, this indicates that whenever max will come, wherever max will come, the tail will be what? Substituted. Okay, so whenever we will use max, 10 will be what? Substituted. In this case, this max will become what? Macro. Okay, in this case, max will become macro. I hope you all have used this preprocessor statements already in your C language itself, okay, or you must have used it into what C++ language. So my dear friends, you need to understand macro is just one of the name given to what set of statements or maybe a particular value. Whenever that name will come, it will substitute all that particular statements uh, in front of that particular name. So in the code, if you are using that, let's say printf, okay, if you simply say like this, printf percentage d, and if you print the value of what max here, in that case you need to understand that the value of max will be what, it will be assigned as a 10. Okay, so this 10 will be replaced here. So what will happen when it will be executed? So preprocessor statement, so before compiler will start its execution, macro processor will what take care, and what macro processor will do, wherever he finds max as a macro, it will replace or it will substitute this value 10 instead of that max, and finally you will get the result like what, print 10. So 10 will be what, visible to you. So my dear friends, this is what the macro, and we have to see in depth about what this macro into unit number 2. So again, I'm telling you, unit number 2 will take care of macro processor as well as loader that we have seen into my previous session. So let me tell you about the definition of what the macro is really wonderful thing. Okay, and you can see how macro can be defined in case of your assembly language. Okay, I have shown you the syntax of what C or C++. We have to simply use hash define. But in case of assembly language, because everything that we have to see today or today onwards, that will be what assembly language in this particular unit. So in assembly language, the syntax for defining macro will be what, macro, then macro name, then there will be set of parameters. We can able to pass the set of parameters to macro, same like it was possible in case of C or C++ also. Then we need to define the macro body, and there will be m end, that is macro end. So macro to m end, there will be what, this is the entire syntax for defining macro. So again, we'll see this particular syntax in depth with example in unit number 2. So currently here you need to understand what exactly is macro processor. How to develop this macro processor will be the study part that will be there in case of unit number 2. Now you must understand that macro processor takes a source with macro definition and macro calls, and finally replace each macro calls with its body. तो जहां जहां पे वो मैक्रो का नाम आएगा वहां वहां पे उसका जो भी बॉडी है वो क्या कर देगा, रिप्लेस कर देगा. तो जैसे मैंने एग्जांपल आप लोगों को दिया था सी का मैक्रो दिखा के, व्हेनेवर मैक्स विल कम, ऑटोमेटिकली 10 विल बी सब्स्टिट्यूटेड on based on that particular max. So max will be replaced by what, 10. So that's the beauty of macroprocessor. Why to use it, why it is essential, that we'll see into what unit number 2. Now the next system software is compiler. Okay, so compiler is same like your assembler, but what it does, it takes input as high level language. Okay, it takes input as high level language and converts that high level language into what, low level language. Okay, so compiler is also one of the translator. What it does, it takes high level language into what, low level language. So I have already told you that low level language will be always fixed. Okay, there will be change. If it is assembly language, assembler will come. If it is high level language, then compiler will come. So that's the difference that we need to understand. But actually, when you are gonna implement this compiler or assembler, then you will actually find the great difference between these two. So this is all about what, the compiler. Now when I'm talking about compiler, what is the benefit of writing program in high level language? क्यों हम लोग हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज में प्रोग्राम लिख रहे हैं, डायरेक्टली लो लेवल लैंग्वेज में क्यों नहीं लिख रहे हैं? तो आप समझ सकते हैं, इट इज डिफिकल्ट टू राइट डाउन इन द फॉर्म ऑफ व्हाट, वंस एंड zeros. If I speak everything in one and zeros, okay, you can understand, you may not understand anything today. If I speak everything in what, in the language of ones and zeros, that is a binary language, or can be known as machine level language, or can be known as low level language. So what are the benefits of high level language? So it increases productivity. So naturally, when you write down something in English, the syntax can be what, easily understood, like printf or cout or cin. All these kind of syntax can be easily well understood by us because it has English statement. The meaning of print itself is what, it will print something on what, console. So that is what an idea behind this. it is very easy to write a program in high level language, because again I'm talking about high level languages like English statement, and which is very well understood to each and every member. Again, it will be machine independent. Machine independent is very very important terminology. As we all are aware, when we are writing any of the code, suppose आप लोगों ने एक सी प्रोग्राम लिखा, सी प्रोग्राम लिखने के बाद आप जब उसको रन करोगे, और सपोज आप लोगों के पास क्या है, आपके पास जो भी आपका लैपटॉप है, उसका हार्डवेयर, उसका जो भी पर्टिकुलर कॉन्फ़िगरेशन है, दैट इज डिफरेंट। इवन ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम भी आप लोगों का क्या है, डिफरेंट है। उसके बावजूद भी आपको सेम आउटपुट वहां पर दिखाई देगा। आपके कॉलेज में दूसरे कंप्यूटर्स होंगे, वहां पे उसका कॉन्फ़िगरेशन अलग होगा, उसका ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम अलग होगा, उसके बावजूद भी वहां पे भी आप लोगों को उसका आउटपुट दिखाई देगा। इफ यू रन इट ऑन मोबाइल, जहाँ पे entire hardware is different, entire software is different, but still you can able to run your C programming to any of the machine. The beauty is that it is machine independent. All your codes are machine independent, and compiler are actually helping us to convert it into what, from high level language to low level language. A program written in high level language is machine independent. That's the real beauty. Okay, so these two main things, that is increased productivity and machine independence, and due to that people are choosing write a code into what, high level language. So that's the beauty. नेक्स्ट इज डिबगर। अगेन यू माइट हैव वर्कड विद व्हाट, डिबगर। आप डिबगर में डिबग करते हो कोड को। ओके, आप वॉचेस डालते हो, F7 प्रेस कर करके आप बहुत सारे कोडिंग को क्या करते हैं, यहाँ पर जो भी कुछ उसमें बग है, बग मीन्स व्हाट, एरर, and debug means what, we need to identify that error and we have to what, we have to fix that error. That's the beauty of what debugger. So what debugger is doing, debugger will help you to test as well as what, to debug your program. Okay, उसमें जो भी bugs है, उसमें जो भी errors है, errors can be of any type. It may be your syntax error. This syntax error normally आप लोगों को immediately मिल जाता है, but logical error identify करने के लिए बहुत problem हम लोगों को आती है. So to identify logical error, normally we all can use what, debugger. So that's the beauty of debugger. So with the help of debugger, we can set the breakpoints, okay, and we can run the code from that. Because we all are aware that sometimes, suppose you have written a code for calculating area of circle, okay, and then you are writing a code for calculating area of circumference, okay. As we know that the area of circle is looking fine, its output is okay. ओके, बार बार उसको टेस्ट करने की जरूरत है क्या, नहीं है। तो हम लोग डायरेक्टली ब्रेक पॉइंट कहां पर सेट करेंगे, जहां पे हम लोगों को प्रॉब्लम्स है, जहां से आगे हम लोगों को प्रॉब्लम्स है, विल सेट ब्रेक पॉइंट फॉर दैट, एंड डिबगर इज गिविंग अस दैट फैसिलिटी टू सेट ब्रेक पॉइंट। वंस वी सेट दिस ब्रेक पॉइंट, उस ब्रेक पॉइंट से आगे उस कोड को हम लोग क्या कर सकते हैं, डिबग कर सकते हैं। इवन इट गिव्स अस, इट फैसिलिटेट टू print the values of variables in between. So when we run that, we will understand what are the values that variable is what taking care, and that way we can understand the use of what, debugger. So debugger is really a wonderful program that really supports us in all aspects. My dear friends, these are all the system softwares that we have studied. So which system software we have studied? So very first system software that we have studied was text editor, where you normally what, type your code, right? You type your code there. Then we have seen what, loader, which loads your code in memory, okay, and helps you to execute it. Okay, that is second part, that is second that we have seen. Okay, so very first is what, text editor, then we have seen what, loader, then third part that we have studied today is assembler. Okay, what it does, assembly language code is converted into what, machine language code. Okay, so assembly language code is converted into what, the machine language code. That's the beauty of assembler. Then we have seen what, compiler. So what compiler is doing? Compiler is converting your high level language code into machine language code. So that is what compiler. Finally, okay, before this we have seen what, macroprocessor. Okay, so what macroprocessor is doing? It is simply what, substitute. Okay, it is simply substitute the repetitive code. Okay, so that is the macroprocessor. Okay, then we have seen what? We have seen debugger. Okay, so if you observe here, okay, if you observe here, so ultimately you all have what? You all have worked with what? Text editor. Okay, you're already typing your code. You have used that text editor. You have used what? Assembler, when you have written assembly language code in microprocessor that was there in second year. Okay, and you have written assembly language code, and you have already used assembler to convert that particular code. You also seen the compiler, where high level languages code, whenever you have written it in C, C++, okay, or Java, entire thing you need what? Compiler, and you have used compiler to convert that particular code into machine language. Sometimes you might have used macroprocessor, where you may have used the statement like hash define, okay, max 10. That indicates that you have already used that preprocessor statements that normally we call, and that preprocessor statements are ultimately executed by preprocessor, and that preprocessor is named as macroprocessor. Next is your debugger. So debugger allows you to decode, okay, to debug all your codes, so you can able to identify logical errors by using debugger, a very fabulous application. You might have used watches F7 आप लोगों ने प्रेस करके टर्बो सी में इसका यूज किया रहेगा, या फिर आप लोगों ने आज की डेट में जीसीसी या बीसीसी का भी यूज करते, तो वहां पे भी डिबगर का फैसिलिटी वहां पर है. यू मस्ट हैव यूज दैट. And finally, once your this particular code is converted into machine language, the aim to do is what? We need to execute that particular code. And this execution is possible by using loader. So what loader is doing, I have already told you, it's various functions of what? Loader. So this is all about what? This is all about the system software that we have, various system software that we have studied. One more system software that is actually pending, okay, and I just wanted to inform you here that there is one more system software, that is interpreter. Again, this compiler and interpreter will be there into third unit. तो आप लोगों को ये समझ में आ रहा होगा कि फर्स्ट यूनिट में असेंबलर का स्टडी करना है, सेकंड यूनिट में हम लोगों को लोडर और माइक्रोप्रोसेसर का स्टडी करना है, और थर्ड यूनिट में हम लोगों को कंपाइलर और इंटरप्रेटर का स्टडी करना है, जहां पे आपका कंप्लीट सिस्टम प्रोग्रामिंग क्या होगा? कंप्लीट होगा. So my dear friends, interpreter also takes high level language and it converts the code into low level language. ओके, सो आप बोलोगे कि हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज का कोड ये लो लेवल लैंग्वेज में करता है, तो कंपाइलर भी तो वही कर रहा था. ओके, कंपाइलर भी तो वही कर रहा था. देन व्हाट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन this interpreter and compiler? Again, this is very famous question as far as your university is concerned. Many times, okay, in university you will get the question which is asked like differentiate between interpreter and compiler. So both are actually doing the same job, but the method is what? Different. Okay, so what method which is normally used by interpreter? So interpreter takes one statement or instruction at a time, okay, whereas compiler, okay, whereas compiler takes full program or whole program as an input and convert that entire program. इसलिए आप देखिए कंट्रोल F9 जब भी प्रेस करोगे टर्बो सी में, तो आप लोगों को एरर्स एक साथ में सब दिखा देगा. प्रोग्राम में जितने भी एरर्स है सब एक साथ में दिखाई देगा. दैट इज अल्टीमेटली व्हाट? कंपाइलर. सो माय फ्रेंड्स, यू हैव ऑलरेडी यूज्ड व्हाट? कंपाइलर एज वेल एज व्हाट? इंटरप्रेटर. इंटरप्रेटर आप लोगों ने कहां पर यूज किया हुआ है? तो आप सभी लोगों ने MySQL के ऊपर काम किया. MySQL में जैसे ही आप लोग काम कर रहे थे, तो आपका फर्स्ट स्टेटमेंट आप लोग लिखते हैं, यदि उसमें कुछ एरर आता है, दैट इज स्टेटमेंट बाय स्टेटमेंट. इफ इट हैज एनी सॉर्ट ऑफ एरर, वो आपको इमीडिएटली वहां पर बता देता है. आप लोगों ने MongoDB भी यूज किया हुआ था. एक सिंपल स्टेटमेंट हम लोग वहां पर लिखते हैं, एंटर करते हैं, आउटपुट हमारे सामने आता है. जब भी सिंगल स्टेटमेंट आप लोग यूज करोगे, तो वहां पे इंटरप्रेटर आएगा. इवन पाइथन are using what? Interpreter. So what interpreter is doing? Interpreter is one of the translator that takes input as high level language, okay, and convert into what? Low level language. But it goes one statement at a time. It takes one statement as an input, convert it into what? Into low level language, then second statement, then convert it into low level language, then third statement. So it goes statement by statement or instruction by instruction. Whereas compiler takes what? Entire program as a whole, and it's try to convert entire program into what? Low level language. So that's the beauty of compiler. तो इंटरप्रेटर में उस स्टेटमेंट में कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगा, तो इमीडिएटली वहीं पे एरर आप लोगों को दिखा देगा. लेकिन कंपाइलर क्या करेगा, जितने स्टेटमेंट्स में एरर्स है वो सबके आपको लोगों को वहां पर क्या कर देगा, सेंटेंस नंबर दे देगा, स्टेटमेंट नंबर दे देगा, और आप लोग उसको क्या कर पाओगे, डिबग कर पाओगे. सो दैट्स द ब्यूटी ऑफ इंटरप्रेटर एंड कंपाइलर. Don't worry, we'll see interpreter and compiler in depth into what unit number 3. So this is what I wanted to discuss with you all. Now, henceforth, we have to start with what assembler, because the main aim of this unit, because this unit is actually converted into two parts. One, we have to analyze and synthesize all the system softwares. So we have seen all the system softwares today, and now we have to even understand the design of assembler. So आपको सिंपली अंडरस्टैंड नहीं करना होगा डिजाइन ऑफ असेंबलर. आप लोगों को तो मैं एप्लीकेशन लेयर तक लेके जाऊंगा, जहां पे आप लोगों को असेंबली लैंग्वेज का कोड दिया, आप नोटबुक के ऊपर उसका जो भी मशीन लेवल लैंग्वेज का जो भी कोड है उसको आप लोग कन्वर्ट कर पाओगे. दिस गारंटी आई विल गिव यू इफ यू फोकस इनटू व्हाट द लेक्चर. बट before we start with assembler, we must understand, we must recall the assembly language. I hope you all have already worked with what assembly language. Let me tell you that assembly language is also known as low level. Actually, low level is a wrong statement here. Okay, it should be what? It should be middle layer. Okay, it should be what? It should be middle layer. So I can say, I can redefine the statement, assembly language is middle level language. Let me correct this, okay, into PPTs itself, so that while I'll upload it, the right content will be in front of you, right? So let me change it. Yeah. So what is assembly language? Assembly language is middle level language. Middle level language यानी क्या? High level language यानी English type. Okay, middle level language यानी क्या? इसमें थोड़ा बहुत ज्यादा सिंटैक्स है, ये करीब है लो लेवल लैंग्वेज के लिए, इसलिए इसको मिडल लेवल लैंग्वेज बोला जाता है. एंड लो लेवल लैंग्वेज इज ऑलरेडी आई हैव ऑलरेडी टोल्ड यू रिगार्डिंग व्हाट इट विल बी इन वंस एंड zeros or object code or in binary form. Okay, an assembly language is machine dependent. We have seen that the high level languages, okay, are machine independent, whereas assembly language is what? Machine dependent. तो आप लोगों ने ऑलरेडी देखा रहेगा माइक्रोप्रोसेसर में 8085 के जो भी इंस्ट्रक्शन सेट्स है, ओके, 8086 में थोड़ा बहुत उसमें क्या आता है, चेंज आता है, बिकॉज इट इज मशीन डिपेंडेंट. ओके, 8 बिट है, 16 बिट है, 24 बिट है, 32 बिट्स है, 64 बिट्स है, ये इसके अकॉर्डिंगली थोड़ा बहुत वहां पे क्या होते जाएगा, चेंज होते जाएगा. एंड दिस लैंग्वेज इज हाईली डिपेंडेंट ऑन व्हाट? मशीन. तो मशीन का कॉन्फ़िगरेशन टारगेट मशीन के ऊपर क्या रहेगा, ये डिपेंडेंट रहेगा. It differs from computer to computer, as it is machine dependent, and that is the reason it may differ from what? Computer to computer. तो हाई लेवल लैंग्वेज कहीं पे भी लेके जाओ चल जाएगा, लेकिन असेंबली लैंग्वेज के लिए आप जिसके लिए लिखोगे वो आपके साथ में होना जरूरी है. सो दैट इज one of the biggest drawback of assembly language. But assembly language is very, very powerful, and many of the system administrators are still using this assembly language to code at various places. Writing programs in assembly language is very easy as compared to machine or binary language, but natural. इसमें भी instructions जो भी है, जैसे move वाला instruction है, add वाला instruction है, तो ये add move इससे समझ में आता है कि डेटा को move करना है, डेटा को add करना है, डेटा को मल यानी multiplication करना है. So that particular syntax of assembly language is looking like what? English kind of statement, and that is the reason it becomes very, very easy to write a code into assembly language than your machine language. So let's look at on what the various parts of assembly language. So my dear friends, I would like to, before I start with this particular session, I would like to open the poll, okay, and be ready for the poll. I just wanted to see your attentiveness. So the poll, I'm launching the poll, and be ready. Answer the poll in 1 minute itself. Last 15 seconds. Okay, it's time up. So I'm ending the poll. Now it's time to share the results. I can tell you that out of 59, okay, almost 50 students have given this particular poll. So I can see that 50 students are active, 9 students, in that I think 2 is of mine, means 7 students may not be accessing this or they must be moving here and there. So I'll definitely identify them today. Anyways, the first question was that dash converts assembly language into low level language. Okay, I have already told you assembly language को low level language में convert करने के लिए सही आंसर क्या है, assembler. Okay, so those who have 76% students have given what right answer. My dear students, compiler is normally convert code into what, means high level language code into what, low level language code. Okay, interpreter भी high level language को low level language में convert करता है, लेकिन assembler is the only translator or a program that converts your assembly language into low level language. So right answer is what, assembler. Okay, so right answer is what, assembler. Now second question, dash takes whole program as an input and converts high level language in low level language. So as we know that conversion from high level language to low level language is by using either compiler or interpreter. Okay, कंपाइलर क्या करेगा, पूरा प्रोग्राम एट अ टाइम लेगा और उसको कन्वर्ट करेगा, लेकिन इंटरप्रेटर क्या करेगा, स्टेटमेंट बाय स्टेटमेंट. तो आई हैव ऑलरेडी मेंशन्ड हियर इट टेक्स होल प्रोग्राम एज एन इनपुट. तो पूरे प्रोग्राम को क्या करेगा, वो एज एन इनपुट लेगा. सो right answer is what, compiler, and 64% students have given what, right answer. So my dear students, those who are not able to give right answers, I request you all to please focus into lecture. Okay, so that you will understand, because I'm asking you very very simple questions which are always based on what, the talk that we are doing. Okay, सेशन में जो भी डिस्कशन हम लोग करते हैं उसी के ऊपर मैं आप लोगों को क्वेश्चन करता हूँ. तो डियर फ्रेंड्स, प्लीज बी अटेंटिव, क्योंकि ये आप लोगों के लिए है, आप लोगों को ही ये आगे क्या होगा, काम आएगा. सो थैंक यू. नाउ आई विल मूव टुवर्ड्स व्हाट आर टुडेस सेशन about what, assembly language. So my dear friends, assembly language, there will be what, various syntax which will be there in assembly language. So let's move on what the very few syntax, very few parts of assembly language which is actually needed us in throughout what, assembler. So मैं अभी फिलहाल आपको पूरा assembly language यहाँ पे नहीं बता रहा हूँ, मैं आप लोगों को छोटे छोटे उसके जो टर्मिनोलॉजी है जो हमें हमेशा काम आने वाली है, दैट आई एम ओनली व्हाट हाईलाइटिंग यू राइट नाउ. सो जिन लोगों को बिल्कुल भी असेंबली लैंग्वेज याद नहीं होगा और जिनको असेंबली लैंग्वेज अच्छा नहीं लगा होगा, उन लोगों को डरने की बात नहीं है. आपको यहाँ पे असेंबली लैंग्वेज का कोड समझने की जरूरत नहीं है, आपको सिंपली सिंटैक्स थोड़े बहुत समझना जरूरी है, वो भी बहुत सिंपल है, मैं आप लोगों को बता रहा हूँ. Assembly language programming terminologies, you can see that you must have heard the word location counter, और इसको और एक नाम दिया गया है program counter. You might have heard the word program counter, okay, normally known as PC, or location counter, normally known as what, LC. ओके, तो प्रोग्राम काउंटर, लोकेशन काउंटर, ये दोनों भी क्या है, सिमिलर वर्ड है. ओके, एंड इट्स फंक्शन इज व्हाट, इट इज पॉइंटिंग टू नेक्स्ट इंस्ट्रक्शन. तो जब भी हम लोग कोड को एग्जीक्यूट करते हैं तो हमेशा प्रोग्राम काउंटर या लोकेशन काउंटर क्या करेगा, जो नेक्स्ट इंस्ट्रक्शन हम लोग को एग्जीक्यूट करें, मींस अभी फिलहाल आप लोग 1 नंबर का इंस्ट्रक्शन एग्जीक्यूट कर रहे होंगे, तो वो 2 नंबर के इंस्ट्रक्शन को क्या करेगा, जाके पॉइंट करेगा. यानी वो असेंबलर को या कंपाइलर को या इंटरप्रेटर को ये बताएगा कि इस लाइन के बाद आपको इस लाइन के ऊपर आना है, इस लाइन के बाद इस लाइन के ऊपर आना है. तो कहां से कहां पर उसका फ्लो जो भी है, that will be taken care by whom, location counter. Its name is location counter, means it is showing you what, the next location, okay, that we have to what, execute, maybe by using assembler or maybe by using any of the translator. So that's the beauty of location counter. Now the next part is literals. ओके, सो लिटरल्स आर अल्टीमेटली व्हाट, कांस्टेंट वैल्यूज। ओके, आप सभी लोगों को पता है कि जो भी कांस्टेंट आप लोग डिफाइन कर दोगे दैट इज नॉर्मली नोन एज व्हाट, लिटरल। फॉर एग्जांपल, यदि आप लोगों ने ऐसे कुछ लिख दिया कि हैज डिफाइंड मैक्स 10, सो मैक्स बिकम्स व्हाट, लिटरल, क्योंकि उसका वैल्यू कभी चेंज होने वाला है क्या, नहीं। या फिर आप कांस्टेंट कीवर्ड का यूज करोगे और कोई कांस्टेंट अभी कोई पर्टिकुलर वैल्यू का आप यदि कर दोगे, थ्रू आउट प्रोग्राम में वो चेंज नहीं होगी, दैट इज नॉर्मली नोन एज व्हाट, लिटरल। तो कांस्टेंट वैल्यूज को यहां पर क्या बोला जाता है, लिटरल्स बोला जाता है, दैट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड। तो वेरिएबल को क्या बोला जाएगा, सो वेरिएबल विल बी नोन एज व्हाट, आइडेंटिफायर। वेरिएबल को यहां पर क्या बोला जाता है, आइडेंटिफायर, और नॉर्मली उसको क्या बोला जाएगा, सिंबल जो भी है वो बोला जाएगा। सो सिंबल्स आर अल्टीमेटली व्हाट, नेम्स ऑफ वेरिएबल्स एंड लेबल्स। तो आइडेंटिफायर जो भी है उसको क्या बोला जाता है, सिंबल बोला जाता है। वेरिएबल को क्या बोला जाता है, सिंबल बोला जाता है। सो दैट यू नीड टू अंडरस्टैंड। ओके, नेक्स्ट particular terminology is procedures. So procedure can be your method or it can be function. Okay, so as we know that the difference between function and procedure, it's there. Okay, but in case of assembly language, procedure is the name given for what, methods as well as function. So you need to understand this basic terminology as far as assembly language is concerned. Assembly language has what, three types of statement that we need to understand. Okay, so very first statement is imperative statement. Okay, next is what, next statement will be what, declarative statement. Okay, or declaration statement. And the third one will be assembler directive statement. So let me tell you about this particular part. यहां पर इसको शॉर्टकट में क्या किया जाता है, कई बार इसको शॉर्टकट में बोला जाता है IS. Okay, it is known as IS, that is imperative statement. Okay, declarative statement, okay, shortcut इसको क्या दिया जाएगा, naturally it is given like a shortcut DS. Okay, that is declarative statement. Okay, और assembler directive statement को क्या बोला जाता है, AD. It is known as what, AD. So there are basically three statements: imperative statement, declarative statement, and assembler directive statement. Now what exactly is imperative statement? Imperative statements are ultimately what, the way you are actually writing what, the move instruction or add instruction or division, any kinds of instruction, whatever you are writing, okay, that is normally known as what, imperative statement. All these instructions are known as, are coming under the category of imperative statement. तो एग्जामिनेशन में कई बार आप लोगों को ऐसा आता है, एक आपको कोड दिया जाएगा असेंबली लैंग्वेज का, और आप लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई करने के लिए बोला जाता है कि कौन सा स्टेटमेंट, ये जो भी है ये कौन से टाइप का स्टेटमेंट है। Okay, so we need to identify that also, and sometimes we get what, 4 to 6 marks for this type of question. So my dear friends, imperative statement यानी क्या, move, add, division और बहुत सारे statements वहां पर आएंगे। Okay, declarative statement यानी क्या, ओके, डिक्लेरेटिव स्टेटमेंट जो भी है ये भी एक्चुअली फिक्स है। यहां पर आप लोगों को ये समझ में आएगा कि डिक्लेरेटिव स्टेटमेंट जो भी हो क्या है, फिक्स है, जहां पर आइदर आप लोगों को डीएस और डीसी ऐसा इंस्ट्रक्शन जो भी है वो आएगा। डीएस मींस व्हाट, इट विल हेल्प यू टू डिक्लेयर व्हाट, सिंबल। ओके, इट विल हेल्प यू टू डिक्लेयर व्हाट, सिंबल। ओके, दैट इज व्हाट अल्टीमेटली नोन एज वेरिएबल इन आवर केस। ओके, हमारी केस में इसको हम लोग क्या बोलते हैं, वेरिएबल। Okay, and your DC, okay, it will help you to define what, literals. Okay, so literals are ultimately what, constant for us. So my dear friends, you need to understand this terminology, that declarative statements are only two statements, DS and DC. तो DS और DC आप लोगों को दिखाई दिया तो आप simply बोल सकते हैं कि that is what, declarative statement. Here DS is actually used to declare the symbol, and DC is usually used to declare what, literals. To understand. Okay, next is assembler directive statement. assembler directive statement जो भी है ये एक्चुअली assembler इसको एग्जीक्यूट नहीं करेगा, ये कमेंट जैसे क्या करते हैं, काम करते हैं। इट इज सेम लाइक योर व्हाट, कमेंट। तो जैसे आप कमेंट स्टेटमेंट देते हैं ना, वैसे ही ये भी होता है। ओके, तो कमेंट क्या करता है, कमेंट कंपाइलर को या असेंबलर को क्या करेगा, डायरेक्ट करेगा। तो असेंबलर डायरेक्टिव स्टेटमेंट यानी क्या, वो असेंबलर को डायरेक्ट करेंगे कि क्या करना है। सो एग्जांपल हियर फॉर दिस कैन बी, ओके, स्टार्ट, okay, then stop, okay, then This type of statement, okay, can be what can be known as this. So my dear friends, you need to understand start, stop, end, all these kind of statements are there. That is known as what assembler directive statements. तो और ये सेट्स जो भी है assembler directive के वो मैं आप लोगों को दे दूंगा. 5 to 6 assembler directive statements सिर्फ होते हैं. ओके, तो assembler directive statement 5 से 6 होंगे. डिक्लेरेटिव स्टेटमेंट दो ही है, डीसी और डीएस. रेस्ट ऑल विल बी व्हाट योर इंपरेटिव स्टेटमेंट. सो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, three types of statement that you need to understand: imperative statement, डिक्लेरेटिव स्टेटमेंट एंड असेंबलर डायरेक्टिव स्टेटमेंट. तो जब भी आप लोगों को कोई कोड दिया जाएगा, आप लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई करते आना चाहिए कि ये एग्जैक्टली कौन से टाइप के क्या है, ये है ओके प्रोग्राम्स है. सो दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एज फार एज दिस स्टेट टाइप्स ऑफ स्टेटमेंट्स आर कंसर्न. So here you can see that imperative means mnemonic. You might have heard this terminology mnemonic. Okay, तो ये mnemonic होते हैं. These are executable statement जिसको हम लोग normally execute करते हैं. And the example for this will be what? Move register. Okay, move R means what? Move register, stop, then read X, then add X. तो यहाँ पे stop है, इसका मतलब start, और वहां पर क्या होगा? End होगा. Okay, stop is what? It is imperative statement, whereas end is what? End is your assembler directive statement. So my dear friends, move R, stop, read X, add, ये जो भी आपको यहाँ पर ये ऑपरेशनल स्टेटमेंट्स यहाँ पर दिखते हैं जिसको हम लोग न्यूमेरिक्स बोलते हैं, that are all executive statements and it is known as imperative statement that we need to understand. So we'll see what this declarative statement I have already told you. Okay, which statements are declarative statements? Okay, which statements are declarative statements? So DS and DC are what? Declarative statements. These are only two which are there for this. And finally, we have seen what? We have seen the next kinds of statement, that is ultimately what? That is ultimately assembler directive statement. And the example for assembler directive statement can be your start. Okay, so that we can able to start the code, so that assembler will understand we have to start executing this code from the start and we have to end at what? End. In between there will be what? There will be 4 to 5 assembler directive statements. So my dear friends, from next lecture onwards we'll focus on what? This assembler. And before that I'll give you some of the assignments. मैं आप लोगों को आज गूगल क्लासरूम में एक असाइनमेंट दूंगा जहां पे मैं आप लोगों को क्या करूंगा? सेट ऑफ स्टेटमेंट दूंगा और आप लोगों को आइडेंटिफाई करवाना है. फॉर एग्जांपल, यदि मैं यहाँ पे इस तरीके से लिखता हूँ कि मूव, ओके प्लीज फोकस, मूव देन a comma let's say b, I have written like this. Okay, then add c. Okay, then I may write down like print C. Suppose I have written this statement. Okay, then what you need to do, again I may what? I may declare the statement like DSA DSB. इस तरीके से मैंने क्या किया है यहाँ पे कुछ स्टेटमेंट्स लिखे. सो माय डियर स्टूडेंट्स, वंस यू गेट दिस, व्हाट विल बी योर जॉब? यू नीड टू आइडेंटिफाई व्हाट टाइप ऑफ स्टेटमेंट इट इज. सो व्हाट यू विल डू? Your start is what? Your start is what kind of statement? It is AD, that is assembler directive. Move is what? It is imperative statement. It is what? Imperative statement, that is IS. Add is again what? Imperative statement. Okay, I is again what? Imperative statement. Print is imperative statement. DS is what? DS is declarative statement. DS is again declarative statement and end is assembler directive statement. This much you need to do. आपको करना क्या है? कौन से टाइप का स्टेटमेंट है? जब भी मैं आप लोगों को एक प्रोग्राम वहां पर दूंगा, कौन से टाइप का स्टेटमेंट है, that you need to identify. That is the ultimate aim of this particular session. So at outcome of this session, okay, क्या होना चाहिए? आउटकम ये होना चाहिए कि जब भी मैं आप लोगों को एक सेट ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शंस दूंगा आज, आप लोगों का काम क्या रहेगा? आप लोगों का काम रहेगा आपको उसको दिखाना है कि ये असेंबलर डायरेक्टिव स्टेटमेंट है, इंपरेटिव स्टेटमेंट है या डिक्लेरेटिव स्टेटमेंट्स है. That's it. So this is what from my end today. If you have any doubt, you can please raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and you can ask the doubts that if you have. Okay, I'm sharing the attendance with you all. Okay, attendance link I'm sharing with you all so that you all can able to mark your attendance. I once again appeal those who have not given prerequisite test, kindly give prerequisite test, which is already scheduled in your Google Classroom. Okay, so I once again appeal you all, please, join Google Classroom of SPOS. डीबीएमएस का गूगल क्लासरूम ज्वाइन करके कुछ नहीं होगा. अभी आप लोगों को क्या चाहिए है, आप लोगों को एसपीओएस का गूगल क्लासरूम जो भी है वो ज्वाइन करना है. आई हैव शेयर्ड दी अटेंडेंस लिंक, okay, here, as well as I'm sharing it on what YouTube also. So the students on YouTube or the students on Zoom can also able to what, mark their attendance. So you can mark your attendance. If you have doubt, you can please ask, unmute yourself and you can ask the doubt, or you can put it on chat window.